So, welcome to Astrology Night at Soul Food Coffee House in Redmond, Washington. This is the first Wednesday night of every month, this month being September 2014. I'm Rick Levine and
I'm Jeff Jower, and we're going to start by talking about the often maligned sign of Virgo.
Why is it often maligned?
Because it likes to be beaten and criticized and corrected. No, astrological signs, some of them get better press than others. And I think Virgo gets bad press by exaggerating its dryness. In other words, I think people confuse, and we talk about this every year when the sun is in Virgo, they confuse the modern notion of virginity with the traditional meaning of the word.
Right. In ancient Greece, where the word comes from, there were basically a class of citizens that were called virgins. And virgins were basically women who were not property. What a concept. And there were basically two classes of virgins. There were the temple priestesses and the prostitutes. And for the record, none of them were virgins in the modern sense of the word, because the temple priestesses performed the Eleusinian rites, these incredible sexual healing rituals, but the thing is that a man couldn't come and demand it. And a prostitute, the man couldn't demand it, had to pay for services and negotiate. You see, women, which may be true to some extent residually today, but then legally were property and therefore did not have the right to say no. And Virgo, the sign of Virgo, is basically the sign of binary decisions, yes, no. This is okay, that's not okay. We call Virgo the critical sign because it separates the wheat from the chaff. This is good stuff, this is not okay. But if you're property, you cannot say this is not okay. And that's the origin of the word virgin. And Virgo doesn't mean, Virgo, the sign, does not mean sexless. It just means not property.
And so that's one of the reasons we think that Virgo gets bad press. And of course, every sign has its issues. What Virgo's job really is to clean up after Leo.
Because Leos need it.
Well, in a sense, that really is what's happening energetically and psychologically, because Leo is the discovery of one's own wondrousness. Aren't I great? Isn't everything that I say worth paying attention to? Well, clearly not. And it is the job of Virgo to take the creative properties of Leo and edit them, refine them, or to take the leonine leaps of love or of the heart and see if they really work out on the earth plane in a down-to-earth functional way. And that's really the job of Virgo, to be functional. And I guess if you know, culture sort of celebrates the drama, the party, the big show, the big ego of Leo, well, Virgo's going to look like a pain in the ass compared to Leo. But it has a perfectly healthy function of applying the will and the ego developed in Leo in some way that's actually useful.
Useful. Keyword useful. Virgo is analytical. In astrology, every sign relates to a planet and every planet relates to a sign. The planet that relates to Virgo is Mercury, but Mercury shows up two different ways. As the key planet for Gemini, Mercury is just information. It's interested in connecting the dots. In Virgo, Mercury is more discriminating because it only wants to connect the dots that are useful. And so that becomes a key part of Virgo is efficiency, is effectiveness, is usefulness, is analysis in order to get to something. It's an earth sign that is practical.
Yeah, and Rick talked about Mercury, a planet being associated with two signs, Gemini and Virgo. And in astrology, planets are associated with signs And Rick has a wonderful AM/FM radio example to show us the difference between Gemini, its data, and Virgo, its useful data.
So here's the deal. Gemini is to AM radio as Virgo is to FM radio. AM radio is noisy, it's sloppy, it's amplitude modulation, it's staticky. You can get stations close by, far away. When you listen, you talk back at it, you yell at the idiot saying shit you don't agree with, and then you tune the station, and then you tune it again. With FM radio is a huge amount of information coming over a very narrow bandwidth. Instead of 1,540 kilocycles, there's 101.3. It's exact, it's Virgoing, and it's so exacting and so precise that when we listen to FM radio, we tend not to spin the dial. We tend to have our station that we camp out on because it's our hum, it's our frequency. And Virgo, like FM radio, is like a laser beam in as much, sometimes you read in books that Virgos can be cool. They can be detached or emotionally cool. Not so. They're as cool as an intense, hot laser beam that's not aimed at you. You see, a laser beam is so precise that it can smoke something that won't even burn under normal situation. It's so hot that it can create immense amounts of heat, but in a very narrow space. And so if a Virgo person, a person with planets in Virgo, the Sun, Mercury, Venus, whatever, a person who has Virgo in energy, if they're not into you, you'll never know that they have an emotion. But like Sophia Loren, who was a hot Virgo, when that Virgo is aimed at you, the energy is quite hot.
There's a word I've been using a lot over the past few months in my own mind and occasionally with clients about behavior. And the word is mechanism. And the reason I've been interested in using the word mechanism is that if I describe behavior as a mechanism, then it's nothing to be condemned. It's just how the thing works. With the Sun in Virgo, from now until the 22nd of this month, we can shine the light on the mechanisms that operate in our lives, many of which are unconscious. The decisions that we make, the ways we operate, both personally and professionally, and shining a light on how we take our 1 + 1 = 2. Think of it on a behavioral level. I could say something to you, put together two things, and to you, that might be an insult and require a response. To you, it might be an insult requiring no response. To you, it might not even be an insult. We all have our patterns of behavior, our habits. And with the Sun in Virgo, this is an opportunity to become more aware of how those habits work on an unconscious level, because the job of the Sun is to make things conscious.
One other thing about Virgo in general is that it's often called the critic. I said earlier because it can separate what's good from what's bad. And certainly there have been many famous literary and movie critics who are Virgos, because Virgo can go into a situation and because they have a sense of perfection, and that's the word I wanted to throw out. I want to come back to that in a moment. Virgos often go through life almost like, remember those old puzzles where you get a cartoony kind of picture and it would say, name 7 things that are wrong with this picture? That's how Virgo lives. What's wrong with this picture? And so when you're with a Virgo, you have to understand that they're not being mean when they tell you that your tie is too short, or that your hair is messy, or that you're just acting stupid today, or whatever. Because their way of seeing things is not what's right with the picture. What stands out is what falls short. I have a friend who's a Virgo who says the Virgo line, and I love this line, is perfect is almost good enough for a Virgo. So the idea of Virgo being the critic, of aiming for perfection, is very important. However, don't jump to the conclusion thinking that Virgos are perfect or neat, because every Virgo that I know has the most disastrous closet or something under their bed that looks like they haven't been there in 2 years. And so there's this whole idea of the efficiency, but there's also the shadow side.
Yeah, well put. But I also think this whole association with perfection in Virgo is slightly overdone. Let me explain. In that if you go to 100 astrologers and you say, what's the sign of perfection? 99 of them will tell you Virgo.
I would.
Yeah, Rick would. He just runs with the crowd, he has no mind of his own. But Virgo is pragmatic. It's an earth sign. The earth signs Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn understand that they have to bend their ideals to the world. So Virgo is pragmatically a perfectionist. I think it's the opposite sign, Pisces, the idealist, the dreamer, the spiritual seeker, who's really the perfectionist. And the level of perfection, of spiritual connection and divinity and perfect peace that Pisces is looking for is so difficult to find in the world that they either space out, drop out, or just accept less. So I think every sign has something in common with the opposite sign.
Agreed. The two sides of the same coin, word same coin.
That's right. And whereas Virgo, as an earth sign, is going to be more concerned with the specificity of form, Pisces is going to be more concerned with the quality of emotion. That's not so easily defined. Now, we got a slight twist, but there are always twists with the planets. Rick talked about the fact that Mercury, the messenger planet, is the ruler, or is the key associated with Virgo. Well, on the 1st of September, Mercury left Virgo.
Escaped.
Said, enough of that stuff. And Mercury entered Libra. Now, Libra, the sign of the scales that we'll talk about, because the sun will also enter Libra later this month. Libra is very different than Virgo because it's open to an alternative to its point of view. Whereas Virgo, the last sign of the first half of the zodiac, represents the weaving together in as tight and refined a way as we can do on an individual level. Libra is the meeting of the other. And you don't meet the other in a perfected state. You meet the other by being exposed to things that aren't you. So having Mercury in Libra would suggest at best maybe we're going to be more objective, and at its worst, maybe having a little bit of indecision in the weighing policy of Libra.
Right, and remember, Libra is a cardinal or season starting sign. When we get a little later in the month, we'll see that when the sun moves from Virgo into Libra, that's the first day of autumn in the Northern Hemisphere. And for those of you who have come to Astrology Night often over the last few years, you know that we're working under this very long-term, powerful, socially changing, economically upheaving? What's that word? Whatever. Square between Uranus and Pluto in cardinal signs. Uranus in Aries, season starting spring, and Pluto in Capricorn, starting winter. And so as Mercury moves into Libra throughout the month, it's also going to pick up on this energy and foreshadow what will happen when the Sun and Venus follow suit later on this month and next month. So I'm just putting that out there as a bit of our own foreshadowing, because Mercury's move into Libra has that contained in it this year.
Yeah, good point. We don't want you to believe because Mercury's into equanimitable.
Oh, now you got my problem.
Now I got it.
I make up words all the time,
right.
But they're never quite
in gracious, harmonious, balanced Libra. Our minds are not necessarily going to be all that balanced as we get into the middle of the month.
Right.
But before we get there, in 2 days, Venus the goddess of love, the planet of love, enters Virgo. Now, traditional astrology assigns relationships between planets and signs. Some of those relationships are considered to be desirable and some more challenging. And Venus, the planet of love, is exalted in Pisces because Pisces is the boundless, universal, unconditional, spiritual sign in which love operates perhaps at an exalted level.
However,
Venus in Virgo, in traditional astrology, is considered to be challenging because that heart connection, that love connection that Venus is about, gets analyzed, criticized, subdivided, reorganized, improved, fixed, perfected. Oh, you love me? Then why do you keep trying to change me? Well, you could be a little bit better as the result of my love. But pure Venusian love in an astrological framework is about acceptance. It's not about trying to change it.
yeah, Venus has a hard time in Virgo, and yet she also has that sense of perfection that when it's met, I always think of Venus in Virgo. What was this? The song from Fiddler on the? It's list maker, rather than matchmaker, matchmaker. It's list maker, make me a list. Because Venus in Virgo is going to make a list of what the ideal partner, lover, husband, wife is going to be. And when she or he meets someone, she's going to say, height right, weight right. This is that's not okay. X, that's not okay. No, I wanted 8 out of 10. There's only 7 out of 10 here. Next. There's something about that, again, that critical separate the maiden, the virgin separating the wheat from the chaff. That is counter to the idea of real love, which is love, which is acceptance, rather than acceptance only if you meet my standards.
Right, and the fundamental remedy to excessive Virgo is the one we've all heard about, constructive criticism. Don't tell me what's wrong without giving me a way to fix it. But I also want to go back to the virgin part of Virgo. First of all, as Rick pointed out, the virgin of Virgo is not the non-sexual virgin of these days. Virgo is an earth sign, and earth is pretty bodily. But when Rick was talking about the list, it's a story I tell here because I used to work for a very wealthy guy as an astrologer and did charts for his 1,000,001 mistresses and all of this crazy stuff. This guy was a Libra, but he had Venus, the lover, and Mars, the passion, love in action, conjunct in Virgo. The man died in a sexual accident. He was with his favorite and most damaged of many mistresses and wound up with some choking operation that went too far. And what that made me think is that Virgo is kinky. Because kinky is about specificity. No, I only get off with 2 circular moves around my left butt cheek, pulling on my right ear, and then, well, I don't want to go any further with it because...
Oh, come on.
No.
You can do it.
No, I really can't. It's a little bit too much. But again, it's that idea that satisfaction is not just some general condition or the result of a general condition or goodwill, but is the result of specific tasks and moves, and that separating the wheat from the chaff is, yeah, that move gets me off. No! Clockwise, not counterclockwise. How many times do I have to tell you? Wrong breast. Let's get this right. So there is, I think, a highly eroticized aspect of Virgo that has to do with precision.
Like I said, perfect is almost good enough for a Virgo.
All right, so moving right along here. Save that deep breathing for Pisces, would you? We're on a clock here, Rick. We're in Virgo.
Well, let's talk about the moon moving into Pisces and the full moon that we're coming up to.
And that is on September 8th. Every full moon, I say this every month, is an opportunity for illumination. Because the sun and the moon, the yang and the yin of consciousness, oppose one another. And in that light of the moon lies both the madness of contradiction and the illumination of connection and awareness.
So we have here at every full moon, the moon is exactly opposite the sun. 16 degrees of Virgo, 16 degrees of Pisces. And so the moon is how we feel. The moon is our needs. And the moon in Pisces needs that spirit. It needs to escape the real world because perfection doesn't exist here and move into the realm of imagination, dreams, spirit, illumination, drugs, and other things. But that's what that Pisces moon needs. And yet at the full moon, the tug of war is pulled tight between our needs, the moon in Pisces, and the sun that's lighting the moon up from this very real, practical, down-to-earth, analytical, specific, detailed-oriented perception.
Oppositions are angles of projection. If we have an opposition in the birth chart, it's pretty common to own one of the planets and project the other one. That
be
is
in relationship with someone who plays out the other one. That's right.
That's right. And that can happen in a full moon. It's an opposition. If you're in the Virgo side, I'm consciously trying to take care of business here, why am I attracting people who are dreamy, spacey, kind-hearted maybe, but a little ditzy and not quite on the ground? Or if you're floating around in a state of divine grace, you may then attract the Sun in Virgo person who says, oh, come on, this is an impractical way to live your life. Oh, sure, you're feeling good today, but there are some real issues that you're going to have to deal with down the road. And rather than projecting, if you find yourself on the soft side or the critical side, as appropriate and as needed. In many cases in life when we feel, well, I'm caught between two opposing forces, the answer is you're both of those forces.
Yeah, I was actually taught that, as you said, the whole connection between oppositions in general, between any planets, but especially the sun and the moon, that oppositions were an aspect of awareness, potential awareness, because if I can hold both ends of the tug of war, both pieces of the polarity in my awareness, normally if I'm looking this way, what's behind me is not in my awareness. But if I can extend my mind to create a wider field of vision that includes both the specificity and efficiency and practicalness of Virgo, practicality of Virgo, and the spaciness and dreaminess and illusions of Pisces, then I'm not subject to falling into having relationships with my projections. Instead, I can have a real relationship. What a concept. Now, one other thing that I want to say about this full moon, that it's rather an extraordinary full moon, because not only is the moon opposite the sun, but the moon is also very closely aligned with Chiron. There's a gazillion, 300,000 things going around the sun that NASA tracks. 300,000. So we use a certain number of them and we call them planets, and now there's planetoids and minor planets and so on. But this symbol here, this K, is Chiron, who is mythologically the wounded healer. Many astrologers use Chiron just as much as they would use Mercury or Mars. We tend to not talk about it just from a standpoint of simplicity. But at this full moon, the moon is lined up with Chiron, the wounded healer, which is about the wound in each and every one of us as humans that we don't get to fix through therapy, through drugs, through love, through prayer. It's the part of us that remains wounded, and the physician who's healing others is often salving their own wounds by doing the work externally through projection. So the involvement of this Chiron so close to this full moon, I think is very significant, and even more significant, and we'll talk about this more in a moment, because at this full moon, Neptune in Pisces also, is also forming a second opposition to Venus in Virgo. So it's not just the moon opposite the sun, it's also Neptune opposite Venus, extending this polarity between Virgo and Pisces.
Yeah, and Chiron's got a 51-year cycle, so it spends a little more than 4 years in a sign. It's halfway through Pisces, so it's got a couple of more years to go there. And I think this can be, on one level, a spiritual wound.
Yes.
How can I be spiritual when I live in a world where I'm separate from others? How can we all be one? And this can be the yearning for wholeness. That's one form of it. Other forms of this wound can be, I'm just the victim. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It's a place of surrender. And sometimes what accompanies that notion of surrender can be, I'm the victim, there's nothing I can do about it. And yet what I think, again, what Virgo offers, if you're wounded in a Piscean way, is let me help out materially, even if I can't fix your emotional problems. The source of this is a book called The Moon in the Virgin by Nora Hall. It's one of the 1970s feminist books. And in it, Nora Hall says, if you're dealing with someone who's wounded emotionally, be like a nurse, not like a mother. And what she went on to explain was, being a mother means you get involved and you usurp the emotions of your child. Oh, let me protect you, baby. And that would be Pisces. You're suffering, let me suffer with you. Whereas the nurse basically is more the Virgo modality, and that says, let me help you with the material thing. Let me do your laundry for you. Let me help you out materially. That's what Virgo has to offer, so that it reduces stress in the wounded aspects of the soul.
You know, Jeff, you said a few really interesting things about the Chiron, and as you were talking, what I thought was, yes, it's the wound, it can be the victim, certainly, but Leonard Cohen's line came to mind that the crack is where the light gets in. And there's something about forgiveness with Pisces in general, with Chiron and Neptune both in Pisces. There's something about this forgiveness that, because it's our humanness, it's not what Virgo makes us perfect, it's where we're broken that allows the light to get in, that creates a relationship, because you can't have a relationship with someone who's noble. What's the word I'm looking for? Inert. Because if there's no vulnerability, there's no real exchange. And so this full moon, to me, is an opportunity to acknowledge where we are hurt or broken or human and others around us, and to forgive that so that the light can get in.
Yeah, I think that's a good one, and it is a real key to intimacy. Now, interestingly, we also have, if the full moon represents a split, which it does on one level, here, Saturn, the planet of hard-cold reality, forms a harmonious blue line, 60 degrees sextile to the sun, and a harmonious blue line trine to the moon. Now, what that means... That's good. Yeah, that's good because...
Or helpful.
Saturn, which is reliable and orderly, is in Scorpio, which says, I ain't afraid of any of your shit. Because Saturn in Scorpio is bad or ass and been to places that you and I have not gone in our worst nightmares. And you know, it's battle-tested. And Saturn's harmonious relationship to this full moon basically suggests if something is broken, you can work with that to restore something of value. You know, and as Rick, you were talking about the Leonard Cohen line, and which is so important, it made me think of this too. If you're taken, if you're criticized, in a way that's wounding for you, or if you thought you did something wrong in a way that matters to you, what the forgiveness of Neptune and of Pisces is, yeah, so you screwed up, but I forgive you, and it's okay. So this is also about redemption, possibly, in love. That Venus in Virgo, I'm not good enough, he's not good enough, she's not good enough.
You're not good enough either.
Yeah, well, I know that. But that in looked at with the compassion of Pisces, of Neptune, it says, okay, this is a little bit off, but that's not the whole story of this person and this relationship. And if I'm willing to move back from my microscopic Virgoan view of what's going on there, I might be able to see the beauty in others and the beauty in myself that makes that flaw disappear.
This is a really rich topic, and we haven't even yet gotten to the pending Venus opposite Neptune, which we will in a moment. But I want to backtrack because I realize that that what's also playing here and playing through the month, and it's an outer planet aspect, so it holds its position for a number of days, is just a couple of days prior to this. I think exact today, is Jupiter forming an awkward quincunx with Pluto, which I think makes it difficult to get a good perspective on things that we're enthused about. Jupiter kind of builds up our position, and I think that sits as a background issue for a lot of this month, and in some ways it even plays into this whole confusion aspect of the Pisces to the Virgo. It makes it hard to figure out really where we're at with some things that may be important.
Yeah, because Jupiter is truth. Jupiter is beliefs. It's in Leo. We can make this shit up, right? And feel good about it. But Pluto,
and we are.
The mythological lord of the underworld in Capricorn, is going, have you tested that out? Can you prove it to me? So we may encounter skepticism about our biggest ideas, our biggest plans, and the issues like criticism are. Is that skepticism going to just tear everything apart and leave nothing but a pile of rubble as a plan? Or is that criticism going to be applied with the intention to build something? I mean, intention is everything. And Rick pointed out, Virgo is kind of like a quincunx. In other words, if you start, the zodiac starts at Aries. 150 degrees away is Virgo. It's that angle of adjustment. Quincunxes, which we have here, one sign off of an opposition between Jupiter and Pluto. We also have it here between Uranus and the Sun. And quincunxes are not things that lead to final resolutions. Like Virgo, they are about adapting and adjusting to work with the imperfections of the material world, rather than either being crushed by them or losing our idealism.
You know, sometimes I remember us talking here about how when a new moon or full moon is at the very end of the sign, the energy shifts pretty quickly afterwards. I think this full moon, actually, the energy holds on, not only because it's in the middle of the sign, but because it's reinforced over the following couple of days by Venus's opposition to Neptune, which happens on the 8th, I think?
The 10th.
On the 10th. Yeah,
right.
The full moon is on the 8th, and that happens on the 10th. And so in a way, it kind of holds that, we're almost enamored with the concepts that may have come up for the full moon, because I think the Venus-Neptune opposition can be about illusions that we fall in love with, even if there's no person attached to it, an idea even.
Yeah, and you know what a cynic is? It's a romantic who's given up. There's no reason to be cynical unless you had higher aspirations to begin with. Pisces is the romantic. Virgo represents the adjustments we have to make to that romantic ideal, and certainly this Venus-Neptune opposition, this planet of love and self-worth and am I okay Virgo opposite Neptune, can, as Rick said, lead us to either project fantasies because we can't deal with the limitations that we have, or just, sacrifice too much for love. Neptune and Pisces are compassion, as Rick pointed out, but Neptune very much is also sacrifice. And that's an element here. I think Saturn helps, though.
I think it does.
It's a damn good negotiator.
Well, there's another thing that helps too, and that is the day after the full moon, we have Mercury in Libra forming a square with Pluto, which isn't necessarily the kind of help that you go out of your way to ask for. But I think it cuts through the fog, because Pluto is relentless in its drive to get to what's at the bottom of things, because it's about maximum perspective, if you will. And when Mercury squares it, I think it can be some very tough communication that brings us out of the illusion, and yet it's followed the following day by the exact. It's a few days of roller coaster, I think, emotional roller coaster.
And again, Rick spoke early on about the fact that Mercury, the communication planet, will be triggering the ongoing Uranus-Pluto square.
And that's the first part of it.
And that's into it. So here's Mercury in Libra. Hi, I want to be nice and friendly. What do you mean, don't talk to strangers? That's Pluto in Capricorn. They'll kill you. They'll take advantage of you. So the negative side is just running into a wall of negativity, whether it's your own or someone else's. But the positive side of that, you remember the times you thought your parents were being negative and they were just informing you of a kind of reality you weren't quite ready to learn. And the naivete of Pisces, of Venus, Neptune, and even of Libra, isn't this nice, is likely to be interrupted by the depth of perception and the demand to deal with reality of Pluto in Capricorn.
So this Pluto in Capricorn, which is the planet that's been square to Uranus for a couple of years now, will come back into exact focus next March. Does it do it once before then?
Yeah, we get another one in later on.
Yeah, later this year, and then the final time is in March of next year. But right now, this Pluto to Uranus is 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It's about 4 degrees apart. So Mercury forms this square with Pluto on the 9th, and then on the 13th, it is exactly opposite to Uranus, and it's all part of the same context of running into situations that are difficult and then needing to incorporate changes that you weren't necessarily expecting.
Right, because Pluto is dense, applies pressure, particularly in Capricorn, which is a narrowing sign. Mercury runs into that on the 9th. 4 days later, Mercury opposes Uranus, a planet of no boundaries, no limits, and in independent Aries. So it's like the very thing, whether it's a problem that you thought was a trap or a conversation that is bogged down, when Mercury opposes Uranus 3 or 4 days later, there's the opportunity to go, holy crap, now I know what you were talking about. Or that insurmountable problem that I ran into the other day. Oh my goodness, I never looked at it that way. Because Uranus is the planet of outside the box, of outside the rules of ordinary structures.
So the 13th and the 14th, I think, are real breakthroughs. I mean, we have to be flexible to incorporate the things that see, Uranus releases pent-up tension, even if we don't know it's there. And with Mercury, there's kind of this aha, may not be pleasant. You may discover something that you didn't want to know, or you may be forced to tell something to someone that you didn't want them to know. But stuff comes out in the open, and it's part of the process. And yet, that's only part of this opening, because at the same time, this is the last day of Mars, which has been in Scorpio for a couple months.
7 weeks. Yeah.
7 weeks. And Mars moves from Scorpio into Sagittarius. And although that's a different flavor than the Uranus opposition to Mercury, it still has to do with freedom and moving to something that's new and reaching somewhere.
Right. The differentiator here is Mars is action. Mercury's thinking, Venus is loving, the sun is being, the moon is feeling, Mars is acting. And Mars, as we've discussed here at length over the past 9 months or so, Mars turned retrograde and spent 7-8 months in Libra. It's almost like a chemical castration was Mars in Libra, because Mars is the testosterone planet, and Libra
says be nice.
Be nice, don't fight. So Mars was in Libra for a long, long time, an excessively long period of time, or appropriately, then went into one of its juicy home signs of Scorpio. Now I can grab things by the nether regions and really make some changes. And yet, to engage things in our own shadow, in our hidden areas, involves dealing with yucky stuff, and Saturn is already in Scorpio. So Mars leaving Scorpio and entering Sagittarius is like, you know all those movies that they have this pattern where the heroes are walking away as something behind them is blowing up?
That's the Mars and Sag.
That's Mars and Sagittarius. So it's like, bye-bye, I'm out of here. Whatever shit went on before, whatever blew up before, we're moving on.
And you know, some of that shit that blew up before may be whatever it was that happened toward the middle end of August. We're not talking about it tonight, but Jeff brought it up, and that is that as Mars was moving through Scorpio last week, Mars lined up with Saturn. So if any of you had a really hard couple of days or a few days or week over the last week, that in some ways was the gas pedal of Mars running into the brake of Saturn. And certainly it's a time when we have to pull back and get real, because it's a seed period that can be very constructive. But this is like that get out of jail free card.
Right.
I'm out of jail. I don't care what they're doing to the prisoners that are left behind. That's not my reality anymore. So I think that the Mars moving into Sag and the Mercury opposite Uranus give us a real shift in the middle of September that really gives us some temporary relief. It doesn't solve any of the issues that are still there. It just gives us, like when lightning strikes in a storm, it doesn't make the storm go away, but for a moment there's that placidness, there's no electrical imbalance in that moment.
Yeah, so Mars going into Sagittarius is looking toward the future, where Scorpio is cleaning up the crap from the past, or being weighed down by the crap from the past. As Rick talked about the Mars-Saturn conjunction in Scorpio, it's like, okay, the engineer blew the whistle on the train, and it's going to start rolling. And it's very, very slow at first, and yet when Mars goes into Sagittarius, we're starting to get up to speed. That's what it feels like in our action, in our doing. I think there's a greater sense of openness and orientation toward the future. Now, if we're too loosey-goosey, on the 21st of September, old Mars in insouciant, unworried Sagittarius runs into a square with his old drinking buddy, Neptune in Pisces, which is wonderful if you are into wandering around in your own little Burning Man of your own creation, but it's not necessarily all that useful for taking care of business. The action planet Mars running into a square with diffusive Neptune is like hitting a patch of ice and skidding. It's skidding in life. It's like, I mean to go there, but I wound up over there. So a way to reduce skids, as any of you who grew up in icy country, don't slam on the brakes.
Or use studded tires.
Right, right. Well, that's preventative. But what this is really about, it means don't push too hard, too fast.
And don't brake too hard.
And don't brake too hard. And the ideal side of it is that this sort of Mars and Sagittarius can be the happy wanderer or the raping and pillaging Viking who's having a good time, sort of burning your village down. and doing all of that, and yet the warrior planet Mars can become sensitized in its square to Pisces. That instead of, wow, let's not burn the village down, there's a kid there. It's the challenge to combine the planet of aggression, Mars, and the planet of spirituality, Pisces. It's a high wire act, but when it's done, it's acting with incredible sensitivity.
We are getting some support the same day from Venus's sextile to Saturn, which in some ways is an attraction, Venus, to keeping the extreme gas brake in check. There's a sense with when Venus and Saturn connect up harmoniously, it's like we're okay with a solid, moderate approach rather than demanding everything now or nothing now.
Yeah, so it's almost like you're ready to do the crazy thing, and you open your wallet and you go, I don't know that it's worth it or I can afford it. Evaluated Venus constrained by Saturn is common sense in the use of resources, even though there's a part of you that wants to try heroin for the first time or do something else foolish.
Now we got three things I think left to talk about. We have the change of seasons, the change of sign on the equinox when the sun moves into Libra. We have a new moon coming right around the same time. But I want to talk about something that doesn't happen until after a week, and that is the first of three trines between Jupiter and Uranus. Last summer, when Jupiter was in Scorpio, when Jupiter was in Cancer, thank you, Jeff, it was making hard aspects to Pluto and Uranus. Now, as it's moved into Leo, it's harmonizing with Uranus. And this, I think, is very powerful and very sweet. This is exact on September 25th, but I think it's in play for a week or so.
Coming
before.
and going,
Yeah.
perhaps. And Jupiter represents higher mind, philosophy. Uranus represents other mind, extraterrestrial mind, other languages. And to have a harmonious relationship between them can be mind-blowing in a good way. That there's this expansiveness of vision. What it also may represent is Jupiter of expansion is in Leo, a sign of ego. So the ego attachment to one's ideas get this little birdie of Uranus and Aries going, it doesn't belong to you. It's just an idea. And if you let go of the ego attachment, we're going to give you more ideas. You can just have them pop up like lilies in the field if you are not so overly committed to controlling the process. It's a great higher mind aspect. Now, as Rick pointed out, the sun enters Libra, I always operate on West Coast time, Rick writes East Coast time, so sometimes our days are off. But in either case, late on the 22nd, the sun changes signs, and as Rick pointed out, changes seasons. Libra is a cardinal season starting sign, and the sun going into Libra is like it's the beginning of fall, and it's the beginning of that social thing that fall is about. The following day, the 23rd, we have a new moon. The sun and the moon join together in Libra, which is the conception. New moons, when the sun and moon get together, that's a conception. And conception, just like in biology, takes place in the dark. You can't see it. It takes place in the dark of the moon. At the new moon, you can't see the moon. And yet, the sun and the moon coming together represents the beginning of a new monthly cycle.
And I think it's interesting at how close together the sun's shift into Libra and then the moon's shift into Libra and the new moon. We have a new moon very close to the autumnal equinox. And so I think it has extra power because it's all happening at once, and it represents a major turning point in the year.
And the power is a shift in relationships.
Yes.
And the beauty of the Libra shift is you don't have to move big objects around. All you have to do is shift your perspective metaphorically shifting the weight on your feet. And what that allows us to do is to re-engage or to engage for the first time from a perspective that's more open. A new moon in Libra says, I'm ready to meet someone that's not me. I'm ready to meet an idea that's not me. And it's a bridge to new worlds.
So then, just a couple days later, we have on the 25th the exact Jupiter trining Uranus, which I love the idea of this aspect. I mean, I think and it's an aspect that actually will repeat. It repeats again in March and then again next June. So this is a long-term cycle of awakening. Uranus is called the awakener. It's like when that lightning strikes, it's like the light bulb goes off. It's electrical, and we get the idea. And so I think it's really important to make notes in your daytime or in your blog about what the process is during and around this new moon, because it won't be the end of this process of awakening. We will be back next spring and late next spring and early next summer with the same issues of opening, awakening that are transformative, I think.
Absolutely, and in practice, allow yourself to be a science fiction writer in your mind. Someone who can create realities that don't yet exist. Because this is happening in fire signs, and fire is the element of creation. It's not a reflection of existing reality. It's something that grows out of that. So entertaining out-of-the-box thoughts is another way to tap into the innovation of this Uranus-Jupiter trine.
We end the month with two more planetary changes. I mean, right at the very end of the month, we have Mercury, which has been in Libra. Thank you, Jeff. I was trying to do two things at once here. And Mercury moves from Libra into Scorpio, and that's on the 27th. And on the 29th, Venus, which has been lagging behind in Virgo, escapes Virgo and moves into one of her home signs, Libra, and so that becomes a very important setup for next month.
Right, and Mercury, the planet of perception, in deep Scorpio is like X-ray vision. So seeing what's below the surface, and Venus in Libra is very gracious. So even though you can see somebody's flaws or see that their underwear is somehow wrong, we're going to be too polite to say anything about it. Or in a constructive connection between the two, it's like, oh, I see that hidden thing about you, and let me make you comfortable as I share it with you. It's not a challenge, it's a kiss. Now, it's a kiss that may come in a form that feels like you're being probed or examined, but I think it's about taking the deeper perceptions and again packaging them in loving and caring ways. All right, and that's only a 30-day month, so next month, wow, we're going to be busy. So, thank you, Rick.
And thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Soul Food, and I don't know, my glasses on Tyler and Aaron and whoever else is on the bar.
And we may thank Craig after we get a look at what the video is about. We're going to take about a 15-minute break, shop, look around, have fun. If you want us to look at your chart, put your first name, your time, date, and place of birth and email address on a small piece of paper. Drop them on this table over here.
Thank you all.